That's probably fine. Yahoo! Alright. 3, 2, 1. What we're doing at the beginning here is we're doing the all aliens glitch. Basically, you skip the first cutscene, and then you quit out of the game, and for some reason it unlocks all of the aliens right at the start. Unfortunately for us, as soon as we start the second tutorial mission, we're gonna lose the aliens. But it lets us use Accelerate here at the start to skip one cutscene, which makes it worth it. So we're gonna come up here, jump off of these trees, jump over an invisible wall and skip a cutscene. And then over here, we're gonna unlock our first alien. So throughout the course of the run, we're gonna unlock 5 of Ben's 6 aliens. And yes, there are only 6 aliens in this game. Yeah, we're doing no reset attempts today. I just want to get a commentated run done. So there are only 6 aliens in this game, and throughout the course of the 3 different sort of areas, we're gonna unlock all of these aliens one at a time. The first one we get is Heat Blast. There's not much to say about Heat Blast. He's got a double jump, and he can light some things on fire, which solve specific puzzles. Here there's a little combat area that I'm gonna jump around. I kind of failed it there, but that's fine. Basically, these void areas have like tutorial segments which teach you how to use each alien's powers, but in general we're just gonna like jump around all of the puzzles. Since there's no like walls or anything, there's nothing that actually keeps us on rails the whole time. Other than in Heat Blast Trial, we do actually have to light all of these torches, otherwise the portal doesn't appear at the end.
Who wants a BBQ'd monster for dinner? Didn't see me coming.
And that's it for Heat Blast. Heat Blast also like sets enemies on fire when you attack them, but you'll get to see that later. It's somewhat RNG, which can be frustrating early on, but after we get some other aliens, we're not going to use them that much. We should probably talk about Ben. I'm doing well. Ben has a scooter. That's his only that's his only thing. The way that Ben's scooter works is that it's faster than his running speed, and if you fall from like a higher surface onto a lower one, such as from the tree onto the ground, you get a little speed boost. I believe that comes from when you're going downhill, you accelerate, and I think that the reason you get the speed boost is just because the game interprets you falling as going downhill, basically. So throughout the run, but mostly early on, you'll get to see me sort of going for that with Ben quite intentionally. And then we'll replace Ben with Accelerate later on, who's much faster than even Ben's top speeds. Over here we have a little bit of a combat tutorial. The way the combat in this game works is you have light attacks and heavy attacks. For the most part, each alien just has one combo that we're going to use that kind of like is their best option all the time. Here you'll see some of the enemies will go on fire when we hit them. If they do go on fire, then we can beat them in one combo. If they don't go on fire, then we're not strong enough to beat them in one combo, so we have to hit them twice, which can be a little annoying. It's one of the like early RNG things. There's also critical hits in this game. I don't tend to rely on them, but it's nice when they come up. And over here we have like a mandatory side quest. This is called the Decibel Door. There are plenty of these like there are plenty of these like, I guess like side quest puzzle segments, but we have to do this one to end the tutorial. And basically, if you step on the pink stuff, you have to go back to the beginning of the puzzle. We're able to jump over it though, just by spamming the jump button, which is really cool. And that's basically us done with the tutorial. What we're going to do next is we're going to quit out of the game because for some reason, after beating the Troublesome Tunes mission, which is the one that we've just done, the next mission, you're not locked into it. You just quit out of the game and then you don't need to do the mission anymore. The only problem with that is that we're going to be stuck in the tutorial area. There's like a death plane around the tutorial area that'll warp you back to the beginning of the game. So we need to do a relatively precise jump to get around that. We're going to exploit the fact that Ben gets a higher speed when he's going down a surface. So we're basically going to jump off a rock and hope that we can clear the death plane. It's not that hard, and later on we're going to do it again because we do have to come back to the tutorial area. And that looked good. Yeah, we're good. I'm not going to do any diamond head wall clips. I haven't found a place for those to be used in any percent. Over here we're getting a fast travel for the swamp. We have to come back here later, and getting the fast travel on the way to our next area is just faster than like running back there with Accelerate. And that's what we're going to do next. We're going to get Accelerate. Because Accelerate is so much faster than everything else, every other mode of travel except fast traveling, it's very fast to get Accelerate as early as possible. We're also going to be using Accelerate for most of the game's combat sections. Accelerate has this weird quirk where if you run full speed into an enemy, it does massive damage, and most of the time you'll just one-shot them. We're not going to use that all the time during combat because the turning, like handling I guess, on Accelerate is a little bit awkward, so in close quarters scenarios it's kind of difficult to make the best use of that. So coming over here we're going to do a death warp. It's not really a death warp, but we're going to jump outside the bound of this quest, and it's going to warp us to where we need to go next. Which is much faster than coming here, like, actually. But that's the only time in the run we get one of those. Coming up in the factory, we've got a little bit of movement here, I guess. It's easy to get stuck at various points here, but it's also very easy to do it in one segment if you just practice it a little. We have our first and only wall clip. We don't really wall clip in this game. It's open world, so there are not a lot of places where wall clipping would even like be possible. But here we can wall clip because the factory is sort of an enclosed space. We get ourselves stuck between this invisible geometry and the wall, and then we can clip. And the reason we do this is to go to the end of the factory, basically, like where we would have to go anyway. And then we just do the factory backwards from what we're supposed to do. I fell down there, that's fine. So we have to press these two buttons, and normally you would have to go all the way around the floor of the factory to get to the two buttons, but because we start at the end we can just work backwards from there, and it's really fast.
Coming in hot.
Over there what I did was I pressed the button while I was standing where the portal appears, so the cutscene starts inside the portal dimension. I don't know if this is actually faster, but it's definitely not slower, so I still do it every time. And now we've got Accelerate. In Accelerate's trial there are a couple things we're going to do to make it fast. There's a combat segment with Accelerate that we're going to skip, and other than that we're just going to generally hold forward because yeah, this is how fast Accelerate is, much faster than the speed of Ben on his scooter or any other alien. And here we go, that's the combat section. We're just going to jump over, and of course I will fall. Of course. There we go. Coming over here, you can just run straight ahead, and if you go onto this ramp, you'll jump onto the rail to grind. But if you jump along, you can skip some of the rail because your running speed is usually faster than the speed of rails. And I say usually because it depends on the rail. There are some rails that are like faster than others for some reason, and I don't really know why. Here we're just gonna escape the factory. And that's the end of our first mission. And with the end of our first mission, I get to explain this. There is an upgrade system. You have toughness, which is how much health you have, power, which is how much damage you deal, and luck, which is the chance of you doing critical hits. Throughout the run, we're only going to upgrade power because it makes the combat a lot faster, and we're not really worried about dying because although sometimes you can die in this run, like, it is pretty difficult to never die. Obviously, if you're going for world record, you can't be dying. But most of the time when you die, you don't lose more than like 10 seconds, which isn't a lot throughout the course of the run, and you're not going to be dying that much. So it's pretty safe to have the minimum toughness upgrades. And I guess you could go all into luck if you really want to bet on hitting crits, but I don't think that would be very realistic. So coming over here, we're just doing basically a fetch quest. We're finding all of these symbols that we'll later use later in the mission to unlock the fountain, which is like the base of operations for our main villain, Hex. In each area, Hex has like a place where he works. I guess except the swamp area, but I think it's kind of implied that he's just hanging out nearby. But yeah, here we're trying to unlock his base basically, so we can cause some trouble for him. I don't really know what the plot of this game is, but I'm pretty sure Hex just wants to like destroy everything. So coming up over here, we get like an actual combat segment that has Accelerate in it, so you'll get to see me use the instant kill power a bit, and then you'll get to see the one combo that I'm going to use with Accelerate, and it's the light heavy combo. And the thing that's so good about this combo is when you have enough power upgrades, so if you have three upgrades to power, it's enough to like kill most enemies in one combo, but also you can move around while you're using it and hit multiple enemies at once. So it's pretty good for AoE damage. It's not the best for AoE damage. If you want to do AoE, Diamond Head has a really good AoE attack. The only problem with that is that we unlock Diamond Head last, so you won't really get to see me use that. Coming over here, we have an interesting example of RNG in this game. For the most part, RNG comes down to stuff like crits and combat, but here we have to put 3 symbols in. And they're the same symbol every time, but when we put the symbols in, the symbol that it starts as is random. So the amount of times that we need to press the X button to swap the symbols is also random. See, I got really lucky there, and it was only one. I only had to turn it once for each one, but usually it'll be between 2 and 3 for each one. So that was very lucky, but usually you'll spend a little bit more time on that. And that's the fountain. Next, we're gonna go back to Ariel, who's the sort of main NPC for this area. She gives us all the quests. And what we're gonna do next, there's a segment where we have to chase Hex, the main villain. And we could chase Hex, and that would take a couple minutes, and you know, playing the game as intended. Or what we can do is immediately run in the opposite direction. And for some reason, when you do that, and you immediately run in the opposite direction, it just teleports you to the end. I'm still not sure why, because most of the chase segments don't work like this. We do break every chase segment. There's none that we play vanilla. But yeah, for some reason, this one just teleports you straight to the end if you run in the opposite direction. Much faster than following Hex. And we're coming up on our third alien here. After we dispatch some of these enemies real quick. So up in this void we have Shock Rock. Now Shock Rock, if you only watched like classic Ben 10, you're not going to remember who Shock Rock is. I believe Shock Rock is a reboot alien, but
is charged up.
I don't really know all of the Ben 10 lore. But what I do know is that Shock Rock's pretty cool. So he's a heavy, burly guy, he's got some big attacks, and he has this like arcing thunder kind of mechanic where if you hit one enemy and there's other enemies next to it, you can do like passive damage to those ones. His main thing though is the tether. You'll see I'm tethering from these objects here, and it looks like pretty slow, but what's really cool is when you switch to another alien in the middle of the grapple, you get to keep the upwards momentum and we can launch ourselves really high. So there are a lot of segments in the game where we're going to use that to gain a lot of height very quickly. Next we've got to talk to some emo kids and get them radio play. I don't really know what's going on here, but basically we're gonna help these kids get on the radio. It's this weird like side quest, but also like main quest that we have to do, where yeah, these guys, we're gonna hack the radio tower or something like that. So here we've got another combat segment. Now that we've got the upgrade from the last thing, we're generally strong enough to kill every enemy in one combo, as you can see there. So that goes by relatively quick. One thing I do want to talk about with that combat that is quite important is the flying enemies. Flying enemies can be really annoying because you can't do combos in the air, you can only do one attack in the air. Well, you can do more than one, but you can only do one at a time before landing, which can be really annoying when you're trying to deal with those flying aliens. So one of the things I do is I look out for when the flying enemies start to land. And then I immediately change my focus to what they're doing. And if I attack them as soon as they start landing, then I don't need to try and swat them out of the air, which is what you might do normally. One interesting thing about that jump there is if you do it too slowly, the pop-up will come up in the middle of your jump and you will fall to your death, which is pretty fun. Here's another chase segment. We're supposed to chase this delivery truck. Instead, we're going to run straight to the end, and because the end starts a cutscene, we just get the cutscene and then we don't need to chase it the whole way, which is pretty cool. It's not exactly the same as when we run away from Hex, because in that case it's like a failsafe for what if they go the wrong way. In this case it's just because it triggers a cutscene. And the whole time we have to stay like somewhat in range of the car so that it doesn't void us out, because that would happen if we ran too far away, and that's not good. But luckily the end of the chase is also like right behind the beginning. Is Accelerate actually the best on fights? Yeah, because always having access to... So his attacks are fast, and you always have access to one-shotting enemies. And he can also do like pretty good AoE damage compared to other aliens. He is actually like generally the best in combats. He doesn't do the most damage. That would be like forearms. But the thing is, you don't need to do that much damage because most of the enemies die in one combo anyway. So it kind of equalizes all the aliens to the same same sort of level where like you're all killing the enemy anyway, so you have to look at other factors than just how much damage they do. This is one of the major like downtimes in the run, by the way. This is 2 minutes of just running from point to point delivering newspapers. So if you have any questions about the run, get them in now and I could answer them. So we're coming up on the end of the first sort of area. This has been the city area. We've unlocked both of the aliens, and yeah, so here's one of the rails I was talking about earlier. The rail's really fast for some reason. What about boss fight? So for most of the boss fights we're locked into playing as just 1 or 2 aliens. But for the last boss fight where we play against Hex, we can just use Accelerate's one-shot ability. So we use Accelerate against the boss just because he does so much damage with his running ability. So yeah, you don't need a broken combo, you just run into him. Alright, now we're done with the newspaper delivery. Here's another segment where we're supposed to follow Hex, but we just turn around and go the other direction. And it just so happens that the end is right behind us. Over here, if you fall too far, like onto the pavement, you will, you'll get teleported back to the start. So I'm gonna land on this building, and what that does is it stops me from hitting the trigger that teleports me back until I'm over here and I can go into the fountain and we go straight to the boss fight. Each boss fight follows the same sort of format. Basically there's 3 crystals that you have to make vulnerable by killing enemies that are defending the crystal, and once you've destroyed all 3 crystals, then you can fight the boss one-on-one. We can't transform, so we don't have the option to transform into any aliens except Shockrock and Accelerate, which means we can't switch to Ben, which usually we switch to Ben to cancel our attack animations, because the game forces you to play as an alien, so if you try to switch to Ben, it'll just transform you back to the alien you are, which cancels your current animation. Unfortunately, we can't do that during these segments because Ben is restricted, so we actually have to do the combat somewhat as intended. And here we're just gonna run straight into the boss to one-shot him.
Hey, monsters nearby.
Wow, that was cool. Cool boss fight. Unfortunately, we don't get the privilege of doing that on other bosses. Because we only have Accelerate for this boss and the final boss. The other 2 bosses that we do, we actually have to fight them as intended. And yeah, you have to kill all the enemies because the crystal is not vulnerable until you kill them. The little shield doesn't go away, and even though your attacks actually go through the shield and you can hit the crystal will never break until you've beaten all the enemies. There's also a weird glitch at the end of the game where if you hit the crystal too early, it soft locks your save file. Like, even if you quit out, even if you restart the game, you can't beat the game. So coming up here, we're going to the second area. It's kind of supposed to be the first area though, because this is considered the same area as the area the tutorial is in, which means we're only going to unlock 1 alien here, and it's forearms, because the other alien that we would normally unlock is Heat Blast, but we already have him. So yeah, I've been looking out over the course of the run to make sure that I've picked up enough coins, because we're going to come over here to Carla Clams to purchase the extra large power bars. and those basically boost your attack power for like a minute or two, and they're pretty useful during boss fights to make them go faster. So we buy enough for each boss, basically. Over here we're just burning these leaves. I don't really know why. And then up here we have a quest where you have to fetch these transformers. Basically, they've gone missing. It's another one of these fetch quests where like you have to defeat all the enemies before you're able to pick up the item that's behind a shield. Kind of like the crystals. There's not really much for me to say on this. It's just more combat like before.
It's time for a rumble.
One thing I will say is that it's very important to become familiar with the combat in this game, because the difference between okay.
Here I go.
The difference between a bad run and a good run will often be the combat. If you hit every single trick and skip in the game, but you have bad combat sections, you're gonna lose minutes. Like 5+ minutes just to having bad combat. It's really important if you want to go for world record that you get pretty familiar with how the combat is played in each segment, because there are going to be times where you can't just do the thing you've been doing the whole run. There are going to be times where your aliens are restricted, or that maybe because of the number of aliens you want to do a different thing to normal. Yeah, this is a pretty big jump. We're going to land on here and then jump forward. It's not difficult, but if it can be kind of awkward trying to land on the little fence peg there. And now we're going back to Stefan Schulte, the mayor of... yeah, I don't know what he's the mayor of. I don't know where we are. Alright, here's one of my favorite quests in the whole game. Basically, we've got some lumberjacks, and they've got no beards. And how can you do your job as a lumberjack if you don't have a beard, right? So we have to make a beard growth serum so that they are able to be lumberjacks the way that lumberjacks are intended to be. And so we've got to do a little fetch quest here, which can be really difficult to do quickly, because all of the different ingredients that we're going to collect move, and the direction that they move in when they decide to move is completely random. I mean, it's not completely random. They have like 4 or 5 directions that they can move in, and they pick a random one from that. But it's still like this difficult kind of... You have to react to it. You can't do the same thing every time. And sometimes you just get bad luck. Sometimes you get really good luck, and all of the things will like cooperate with you. And other times you get these runaway truffles that you just can't seem to grab. All of this is not helped by the fact that the attack button is the same one as the pickup button, so if you're just slightly off, then you will attack by accident. And there we go, we got the beard growth serum from Amphibian, and we're going to go back to the lumberjacks to give them the beard growth serum. Now, in any other game, in any other story-based game, I think that you would just hand over the potion and that would end the quest. But in Ben 10 Power Trip, we get to interactive beard growing minigame where we grow a beard on each of these people, and unfortunately they're getting the patchiest, worst beards you've ever seen, because this is a speedrun and we don't have time to grow that beard out. So now we're gonna go get Forearms. Forearms is a really broken alien, but you won't get to see that until later. But forearms is the source of one of the biggest skips in the whole game, so you know, get excited for that. But we won't get to see that until later. Right now, he's basically just gonna help us do some lumberjack activities, like cutting down trees and moving logs around. But yeah, so we just gotta clear out the barn of these enemies, and then a portal will appear. Accelerate doesn't have, or sorry, not Accelerate, Forearms doesn't have that much going on. He doesn't have any like movement options or anything exciting. He's actually the slowest alien that we're gonna play as. So you might be wondering like, oh well, in this segment where we unlock Forearms, are there going to be any skips? Because obviously, like, he's so slow, he doesn't have any movement options. And the truth is that these void sections are so poorly put together that you can just jump around everything in Forearms' trial. Like, there are puzzles here, we're supposed to smash that wall. We're not going to smash the wall, we're just going to jump over it. Like that. We're supposed to pick up this boulder. Again, we're not going to pick up the boulder, we're just going to jump around it. We're supposed to move this rock with our super strength, we're just going to jump onto it. There's another puzzle we're supposed to solve up here. We're just going to jump off the head of an enemy to get a little bit of a boost. It can be a bit difficult to get them to cooperate sometimes. And there we go, we just jump over every puzzle, never playing them as intended. And now we're going up to Chop Hollow. Chop Hollow is where the lumberjacks live. It's like a little society of lumberjacks, or at least that's what I've gotten from playing this game for 150 hours. On the way up to Chop Hollow, we get some pretty like fun movement stuff. I get to explain the extended sort of heat blast double jump. Basically, when you jump onto a sloped surface, you refresh your double jump, but it stops you from double jumping because you're on the surface. So we jump onto the surface and then immediately turn around to get off the surface so that we can double jump, and then keep doing that basically to keep refreshing our double jump. And it allows Heat Blast to double jump many times in a row. So we're going to skip a lot of the puzzles here that unfortunately I just don't get to show you in this run because it's fast to just jump up the side here. But what I do get to show you is that Heat Blast can just do this up the side of pretty much any slope mountain, and of course I would fall down there. And it's kind of difficult to do. It is absolutely learnable. I've talked to a lot of people who have played this game and who never got it down properly. But it's not that tricky, it just takes quite a bit of practice to do those jumps, but it's absolutely worth learning because it's one of the most important tricks, because you do need to use it at several points to skip large portions of gameplay. I mean, there was a whole like cave thing we skipped there, I'm pretty sure. I say I'm pretty sure because I've never played this game casually, but don't worry about that. Yeah, over here we're just moving some wood around. We gotta get the darker wood to the end of the puzzle. We just do these puzzles as intended. There's no real sequence breaks or anything. At least I think it's the way we're intended to do them. In any case, we just push it to the end as one of our lumberjack duties. And speaking of lumberjack duties, up next we're going to smash some trees, which is pretty fun. It's actually just a mini game in mashing the A button. So. There, we're going to climb this mountain. And this whole time, so there are these side quest things. You see one over there with the crystal. Those are called void ruins. If I get too close to one of those, a little pop-up comes up that explains what they are. And we don't want that to happen. So we are avoiding them throughout the run. After each tree you smash, the lumberjacks will celebrate you. That animation's kind of long, so we transform into accelerate to cancel the animation. And that makes it pretty fast. It doubles as also like your walking speed is fast, so it doesn't take as long to get to the next tree. Coming up here, we're gonna get another upgrade and a phone call from Stefan Schulte. What we're gonna do next is collect some frogs to make a mystery potion. And I just teleported to the wrong place. That's fine, it's just a little loading screen. Loading screen never hurt anybody.
Where to?
Yeah, we're going to the swamp. And we have to collect some frogs. This is a similar collection minigame to the beard growth serum, except it's much nicer. You only have to collect one thing, and that's frogs. And there are plenty of these rocks around. Each of them gives you 2 frogs, so it doesn't take that long. You'll see me transform into Ben. The reason I'm doing that is for the reason I explained earlier, where attacks are on the same button as picking them up. Ben doesn't have any attacks, so you can just mash the X button to pick things up when you're doing this quest, and that makes it pretty simple. We have a little mini game here where you have to mix potions together to try and find the right thing. I hate to break your immersion, but it's always the 3rd thing you do, so no matter what combination of liquids you throw in here, you're always going to find it on your 3rd attempt. So there's no point in trying to speed this part up. And now we're coming up on the 2nd boss. We're going to use Heat Blast and Forearms here. The whole plot twist is kind of that Amphibian was actually working for Hex. We don't really care about plot, but I thought I'd keep you informed if you're wondering what happened there. Now we're going to use the power bar so that we can basically kill things pretty fast. It's more so for the boss segment, because when we fight the boss, has a lot of health, so we want to make sure that we can kill it quite quickly. But it is nice to do the extra damage to the peons as well.
Wants a BBQ'd monster for dinner. Ow.
So one of the key things about this boss is it's actually made of wood, which means it's more vulnerable to fire attacks. So when I use Heat Blast at the start here, to set it on fire, and then we're going to turn into Forearms, because Forearms does a lot of single hit damage. But it's quite useful to have Heat Blast around to light it on fire. Alright, coming up on this next segment, I've got to explain a little bit about how the triggers and flags in this game work. Basically, we have to do the quests mostly as intended, because although this game is broken in many ways, there are a lot of glitches, there are a lot of out of bounds, there are a lot of like skips. One way it's not broken in is the quest order. We kind of have to do every quest in the order that's intended, because there are a lot of flags and triggers that ensure that one thing is done before the other. The only exception to this that we have found in the whole game is what I'm about to do next. We call this Wrath Skip because it skips the alien Wrath, and thank God that it does, because it takes a long time to do that quest where you unlock Wrath. So it's pretty instrumental to the speedrun that we found this Wrath Skip. And the way it works is basically the quest that we're about to do early it ends with you pressing a lever, and you're only supposed to be able to press it if you have Wrath, but we found a way to do it that doesn't involve having Wrath, which means it puts us forward in the quest tree much earlier than we're supposed to, basically. So we're going to light all of these, and with some pretty simple jumps with Accelerate and Heat Blast, we can get over here, which, like, you see these little rock climbing things. You're supposed to use Wrath to climb up here, but there we go. We trigger the lever without ever getting that quest that we just completed. And now we've skipped Wrath. We're much further in this quest than we're supposed to be. We've skipped about half of the quest line of the iceberg area, which is where we are now. We're going to talk to Astrid, and here we go. I get to finally show you one of the coolest time saves that we've come up with in the run. It's called the Rock Launch. It involves using co-ops for a little bit. We do have a co-op category where you're allowed to use Kevin throughout the whole run. For single player, you are allowed to use Kevin, but only for trick setups and stuff like that. You're not allowed to use him during combat. The reason we have the rule set like this is because we don't want the main, like, any percent category to be 1 player, 2 controller, but it saves so much time to use him for this glitch that he is allowed for that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to pick up Ben. I'm going to switch to my keyboard because I only have 1 controller, and the controller is for player 2. We're going to switch our aliens, and we're going to clip through this wall using Kevin. This is not the trick, though. The trick comes next. We're going to pull a rock with forearms, and it gets stuck inside him when you fall out of bounds doing that. And so when it's stuck inside you and it gets pushed up, it continues its momentum upwards forever, and you can get infinite height off of the rock. So this skips us climbing this whole mountain. Instead, all we do is launch up to the top and fall down onto the thing we need to collect. It is so much faster, and that's not the only time in the run we're going to use it. We are going to use it. We are going to use it again. It saves so much time. It is such a cool trick. Next, what we're going to do is unlock Diamond Head, and if you're thinking that came fast, that is because we skipped so much of this mission that there's not much left for us to do before before we're done with this part. I need a drink.
Yes.
Hold on. I know this is slow, but
the universe has one final message for you.
there we go.
Perhaps I.
If you want to ask how these glitches were found, do not ask me. I only found like a few of the skips that are used. For the most part, this game was glitch hunted and routed by Norbeck Stubble and Woven. Woven discovered a lot of the tricks that we use today, innovated a lot on the run. So don't give me any credit. I just found a couple like skips. Now that we've got Diamond Head, a couple things to say about Diamond Head. His main abilities are he has like a glide thing where he glides in the air like this. It's faster than his running speed, so we're going to use it a lot when we're playing as him. He can also create walls, which you can then stand on to gain a little bit of extra height. We're also going to use that a lot when we're playing as him because it allows us to skip a few things in segments where we're forced to play as him. For the most part, we're not going to use Diamond Head except where he's really needed to be used, because for the most part, it's just faster to use Accelerate for like all segments. But at least here we get to show off Diamond Head a little bit. So the bridge is broken. What we're supposed to do there is use Diamond Head to get across the bridge, but you can just jump across. But I guess as a kid, you're just supposed to accept, like, I've unlocked this new alien, I'm supposed to use this new alien. But we don't have any time for that. As we come over to this inn, basically Hex's base of operations was just a room in this hotel. So we're gonna go over to this room, and there's gonna be some dark energy sort of pulsing out of the hotel window, and you can see his stuff here.
I should bring this to Astrid. I bet she can help me figure out where this map points.
I don't know what the map is for, but we got it. The next part we have coming up here, we have to collect some totems. There's 3 of them, but they're spread out on all these islands in Linguini Lake. So what we have to do is we have to do some parkour, basically. You can just use Diamond Head the whole time, and because Diamond Head is very, like, forgiving, you'll have no trouble solving the totem segment, but it is much faster to use Accelerate to jump across all the gaps. The only problem with that being that some of the jumps are pretty difficult, so we'll see if I can get them, but I've got the backup strats if not. So yeah, these are the little cat totems that we're collecting, and we're just going to jump across all these islands with Accelerate. And I fell off there, but that's just because I didn't press the jump button early enough, and for some reason it happened twice. That was weird. I did press the jump button, it just jump didn't come out. That's fine. Here's our second totem. Over here we're going to do a precise jump off of this ice. That ice might look quite big, but the actual area that you can jump off of is only on the like behind of it. So if you jump from the front, you actually can't jump on it at all. And then coming up here, we're going to use Heat Blast to hopefully... There we go.
In style. This'll come in handy.
And that is the last quest for this area. It went by really fast, but that's because we're able to skip so much of it with Wrath Skip. What we're going to do next is just go straight to the boss. We're supposed to climb an even bigger mountain than the last mountain. You can see it up there. It's a pretty big mountain, but as you can probably guess, we're going to do the exact same thing again. We're going to get the rock launch to skip the entire climbing segment. So what we used to do is climb like halfway up the mountain and then do the rock launch. But it turns out that as long as you come from a specific area, the reason we had to go up halfway through the mountain before is because there's actually a death plane above us that's intended to stop you from falling down when you're up the mountain. But there is an area over here where you can go around the death plane basically, and you don't need to worry about
You didn't see that.
and you don't need to worry about accidentally dying on your way up the rock launch. And so this saves a lot of time because we don't have to climb halfway up the mountain, and it looks like all is going well. So you can quit cooperative play and just... we have to get quite a lot of clearance here because we have to go quite far forward. You accelerate very quickly when you're going down, and also your downward speed is uncapped, so you can go really, really fast, which means we need to get quite a bit of height there so that we're able to get enough forward distance during the jump. And here we have our third boss fight. Say hello to Wrath, everybody! This is the only time in the run you're gonna see him. For some reason, it starts you off as Wrath. It doesn't unlock Wrath. We don't have him, but we do get to play as him until I transform into Diamond Head, which was right then. We get to play as Wrath for a bit. So everyone say bye, Wrath. He's gone now. So yeah, when we're talking about Diamond Head's combat, his light, heavy attack has quite good area of effect damage, as you saw there. I hit 2 enemies at once with it. So that's pretty good. And yeah. Oh, also his wall reflects projectiles. I forgot to mention that earlier. We don't really use that in the speedrun at any point, but we can reflect projectiles doing that. So this combat's really slow because we can't switch between Wrath and Diamond Head. We just have to do the whole thing with Diamond Head. It's not that slow though because we've already got all of the power upgrades. Well, not all of them, but we've already got a lot of power upgrades, so it goes by pretty quickly.
This'll come in handy.
Yeah, you can clip through things with your downward speed from the rock launch. You can clip through the floor. We haven't found anywhere where that would be useful though. And it takes a long time to set up as well. Alright, so before the final boss, there's these things called trials. We basically have to upgrade the Omnitrix. And to do that, we have to do these trials with each of the sets of aliens. And unfortunately, one of those segments involves using Wrath, and we don't have Wrath. So we have to get a little bit creative and figure out how to do it without Wrath. And that culminates in this really tricky jump with Accelerate, which has been a known run killer for a long time in my runs and in other people's runs. I have lost minutes to this before. I've gotten a lot better at it, so I'm not expecting it to take that long today. But it is a hard jump, so when we get to that, I will point it out. It's one of the run killers very deep into the run. In general, all of the trials are like, there's a lot of time to be saved if you're good at them, particularly in the combat segments. But there's also a lot of time to be lost if you're not prepared. So, what you just saw there was an elite enemy. I don't know if the game has an official name for them, but that's what I've been calling them. Basically, when the health bar for an enemy is gold, that means they're an elite enemy. Sometimes it also changes their design, but not always. Depends on the enemy. It basically just means that they have more health and do more damage. The chance of an elite enemy spawning is based on your stat total. So that's why we see them more later on in the run than compared to early on. But there is a very rare chance they can spawn like right at the beginning of the run, and it's always fun when that happens. But I've only seen it happen a couple times because the chance of them spawning really ramps up as the game goes on. Alright, here's where the trials are. We're gonna get the hardest one out of the way first. That's generally how I've approached the trials in the past. There's also a couple other reasons why we want to do Accelerate first. It just involves like when we use the health, or not the health, sorry, the damage upgrade. So the jump that's hard is really, it's at the start here, so you'll get to see that. Basically we have to jump off of these bricks on a pillar, and it's a really small area and it's really easy to fall off, so let's see if I can get it. Okay, there we go, that's the first part, and that's the second part. Really good there, first try. Got the hard jump. I've had so many runs die to that. Equally, I've had so many PBs that were just because my previous PB failed it a couple times and then I got it first try on a new PB. Very difficult to do consistently. And now we're basically just running to the end of the trial. There are no other like hard segments here. Unfortunately, because we can't transform into Wrath, we have to do this combat only as Accelerate. That's not too bad, but it does mean that we're gonna have to prioritize using the one-hit KO attack more, just because we can't cancel our combos by turning into another alien. And okay, I almost fell off there. This big guy can spawn as an elite, and if he does, it takes like 4 times as long to kill him compared to normal, so it can be one of those, like, not quite run-killing things, but just like an unfortunate example of RNG in the run. And there are a lot of those as we get deeper into run. There's stuff with, like, enemy AIs and stuff, and if they spawn as elites or not, that are, like, arguably just, like, RNG time losses. Coming up to this next trial, we're going to try to do it as fast as possible, not just because it's a speedrun, but also because we want to use the health and damage boost that we already have. So we're kind of on a timer here. Trust me, it's not that difficult. We're basically just going to fly to the end using Diamond Head. Alright, see you! We're basically just going to fly to the end using Diamond Head. His glide ability, because this trial we start right at the sort of highest point in the world. So by using our glide ability, we're basically able to just glide forward most of the time. This is a bit of a difficult combat. I've died here before, and this is one of the areas where dying actually does have a major consequence. You'll lose like a lot more time than in most other places where you die. This is because you go further back when you die, and also you have to start the combat from the beginning. If you die during a boss fight, the boss doesn't it doesn't regain any health. You can just keep hitting it after you respawn, so you don't lose a lot of time there. But in this trial, you can lose a lot of time by dying. Hopefully we won't run into that issue, but if we do, well, we'll see what happens. Alright, here we go, the combat section. We're going to try to use the Diamond Head AoE ability as much as possible. Heat Blast is not going to see as much time in the light, but we are going to use him occasionally, just because we can turn into him to cancel our Diamond Head attack. It becomes pretty valuable to have him there, but he's not nearly as strong in these like multi-target situations. We're going to bait this guy into attacking us, because unfortunately we don't have Accelerate, so we can't do what we normally do, which is just attack him and then basically walk around him during the attack. That's the second trial done. This next trial we're going to be playing as Shock Rock and Forearms, which means we get to do a couple more Shock Rock launches before the end of the run. The combat in this section's pretty fun because they both do so much damage with each hit. We don't even need the power boost, and they still melt through enemies extremely quickly, which can be fun. Just gonna equip them to our quick select there.
Monsters over there!
So we're mostly gonna play this as intended, except for the couple skips that we do have. So there's one there where we Shock Rock launch above the wall, and there's another here where we're gonna Shock Rock launch across this gap. That can be a little bit of a tricky one. You kind of need to get as much height as possible. It's very easy to mess that one up. But I'm really good at this game, you know. I'm a master at my craft. And then that's kind of just the end of the trial. We still have the combat left to go, but not much more in terms of movement. As you can see, we're doing a lot of damage with each hit. Even against these elite enemies, it doesn't take much to kill them. And here you can see the little lightning arching thing I was talking about earlier, where if I hit enemies that are nearby, if I hit enemies and there are other enemies nearby, the thunder kind of jumps between them and deals an extra passive damage, which is one of the nice things about having Shock Rock in this trial, is that they do tend to get grouped up in this lower area. And there we go, that's the end of the trials. So next we just have the final boss. It's the same as the other bosses basically. You just destroy 3 crystals and then fight the boss. Luckily we do have every alien during that segment, which means that we can use Accelerate as much as we like. We also still have a power boost available. I'm just going to use that right now because the final boss is so short that we don't need the power boost. We don't need to worry about the power boost running out usually. Just bonked my head on the wall there, that's fine. Here we go, this is Hex at the castle. We can get inside the castle early. There's like there's like just a bit of the wall that has no geometry, but there's nothing inside the castle, it's just a set piece. So here it is, we're in the void, we've got to destroy all these crystals. Dying during this segment is kind of bad, so we're going to try not to do that, but it's also kind of RNG because the whole time Hex is going to be throwing these fireballs at us, and sometimes he can randomly just throw like 5 at once, and it's hard to avoid them and you just take a lot of damage. So there is a little bit of RNG involved in trying to stay alive here. Generally, it's not that hard during the first 2 crystals. It's really the last one where we're most likely to die, and that's because there's a lot of flying enemies which will shoot projectiles at us. Combined with Hex's fireballs, it can be pretty difficult to avoid taking all that damage. There's a lot of flying enemies because we're intended to use Shock Rock to pull them close like that. We're not gonna do that because you can only target 1 enemy at a time doing that, which is not very useful. So we're just gonna whack them. Get up here, kill this guy first. And as you can see, the fireballs are targeting me while I'm on top of this guy. Luckily none of them managed to hit me. Another thing that I haven't mentioned about the combat so far is that you kind of lock on to enemies. So sometimes when you're trying to attack one enemy, you'll just turn in the complete opposite direction and attack another. You can't choose which enemy you're locked onto, and the game does not show you in any way which enemy you're locked onto. It just kind of happens, and you could play the entire game without noticing that mechanic. Just because it's so hidden from you, but play it enough and it'll show up. Alright, we're gonna try to kill him with the Accelerate ability here. This laser is pretty scary, but he stopped doing it. Oh, he's back. Taking a bit longer than normal there.
I have the power of all 4 crystals
The electric attack I mentioned earlier doesn't hit flying enemies.
My will, physical world.
It also doesn't do enough damage to where it would be worth switching. I mean, it does hit flying enemies, it just doesn't hit flying enemies reliably. Because it's kind of weird. Anyway, we're supposed to chase Hex here, and we kind of do, but also we're much faster than Hex, so we get to the top way before him. And time is coming up here, just as soon as we've killed him, basically. And we're gonna try to make this fast. There we go! 103.51.
Tennyson!
That was Ben 10 Power Trip.
I will become the most powerful